section 6.2. This is altitudes and perpendicular bisectors. Now we're going to handle this section just like we did in our lesson. If it's an altitude or a perpendicular bisector, you can say that, but if it's also a median, you should say that as well. And if it's all three, then you should say that too. Okay, so in number one, we have a segment that touches a vertex, and the segment also is perpendicular to the other side. That's what an altitude is. This segment touches a vertex and a point on the other side, but this point is not perpendicular and it's not a midpoint. So this is none of those three that we've learned in the last week or so. This segment touches a vertex and it's perpendicular to the opposite side. That's an altitude. Number four, that segment touches a vertex, and this point that's on the opposite side is a midpoint because of these marks. That's what a median is, remember. So that's not in this section, that's last section, but that's still a median. This touches a vertex and a midpoint, and it's perpendicular to that other side. So when all three of those things happen, it's a median, it's an altitude, and it's a perpendicular bisector. Number six, that point is definitely a midpoint. It also meets that side at a right angle. That's what a perpendicular bisector looks like. And it's none of the other segments because notice how it doesn't touch a vertex. So it can't be a median and it can't be an altitude. Number seven, touches a vertex, touches a midpoint, meets that side at a right angle. So it's all three, just like this one. Number eight is an altitude. It touches a vertex and meets the other side at a right angle. Number nine, that point right there is not a vertex. I probably shouldn't have colored that in, but this point here is a midpoint and it meets at a right angle. So pretend like I didn't do that because that needs to be a vertex and it isn't a vertex. This is just a perpendicular bisector. Number 10 is none. It just touches a vertex and that's it. That point is not a midpoint or meeting at a right angle. This is a perpendicular bisector. This segment touches a vertex. It touches a midpoint and at a right angle. So it's all three. We're going to use this figure over here. Name a segment in the triangle that is an altitude. Well, there's a lot of triangles here. So which triangle are they talking about? If they're talking about the big triangle, this segment would be an altitude, or this segment would be an altitude. So it's really kind of up to you which one you go with. It touches a vertex and it touches a right angle on the other side. So when you have a right triangle like that, remember an altitude lives on the triangle. It could live here or here, actually, either of those spots. Name a segment in the triangle that is a perpendicular bisector. Well, in this big triangle, point D is the midpoint of that side. So it bisects that side and it's also perpendicular to that side. So this segment, segment DF, does both of those things. It's perpendicular and it bisects. Number 14 again. Let's call that 15. Makes more sense. Name a segment in the triangle that is not an altitude and is not a perpendicular bisector. Well, how about segment AG? Segment AG touches a vertex and it touches a point on the other side, which isn't necessarily a midpoint. Maybe it is, but we can't say for sure that it is. And it doesn't meet at a right angle.